have the pleasure this evening of saying hello and welcome to all. We're sending you virtually wishes for safety and peace really to everyone tonight and always. For those of you I haven't met, I'm Allison Green Myers. My pronouns are she, her. I am the program director here at the Highlights Foundation, and I'm joining you from northeastern Pennsylvania on the traditional and contemporary lands of the Lenape people. And I would like to welcome you all tonight to our September HF Gather. With me tonight from the Highlights Foundation team, I see lots of names talking about Romper Room that are already in the chat. Bobby Combs and Molly Chow are in the chat. I see Alex Viasante in there. Some favorite friends from the Highlights Foundation team. Thanks for being here. A note for everyone as our attendees, this is a webinar. So that means we can't see your video and we can't hear your audio during the session, but we can see what you're filling up the chat with, which is great. And we can also see questions that you place in the Q&A feature. You should know that after the recording, when the recording is sent out to you, we will have captions as part of tonight's program as well. If you're here with us live, please continue to post in the chat, give your warm hellos. We love seeing that. We would love for you to add any questions that you might have for this panel into the Q&A feature though, because just based on the way that the chat is hopping right now, we will lose questions if they're placed in the chat, but we'll see them if they're placed in the Q&A feature. And we'll get to as many as we possibly can after this wonderful conversation. I do want to remind you that in these spaces, in the chat, Q&A, webinars, meetings, if you come join us at the Retreat Center, you should know that at the Highlights Foundation, we strive for a safe and inclusive environment. And this means coming into our sessions with no hate, no harm, and no harassment of any kind. Let's take good care of one another. It's really important right now and always, and especially in the work that we do for children and in children's books. Really, I think you should all know our mission at the Highlights Foundation is to amplify the voices of storytellers, and that mission is fed by creatives like Pat and Shadra and Rudy and Xindi. And tonight's guests are here to talk about something very important: income. So they'll be talking about income streams for children's book illustrators, but it's certainly a topic we can all listen to and learn from as creatives. Sometimes that's the hardest part to think about, naming a price and looking out there and looking at all those opportunities. So I want to say welcome to everyone on the panel. Thank you for joining us to talk about this important topic. And Pat, I will turn things promptly over to you.
Well, thank you, Allison. So good to see you. And it's so good to see all the people who have come, even though I can't see them, I can see their names. I'm really impressed with Zoom and the fact that we can all gather like this, because I even see a friend of mine, Nurgul, who's in Turkey and is, zooming in. I love it. We're all around the world if we want to be. Tonight, we're going to talk about those additional income streams, which we all need to know about, even if you love doing books and you're doing them well and, often, you might find yourself looking for other income streams. And the people on this panel are very creative and imaginative. And beyond what they do, I think they probably already know about other people that do interesting things as well. So we're going to find out a lot, hopefully answer a lot of questions. I want to introduce them very briefly and only tell you the things that they would not tell you themselves. Xindi Yan, she graduated from Pratt, and Rudy and I both had her as a student, and we were just talking about how she jumped out there out of the starting gate working like crazy. I remember, and you probably don't want to bring this part up, but Xindi got a job doing playground structure design right out of college. When you go in the playground and you see those interesting shapes, somebody has to design them. So Xindi's had a bunch of books that have come out. She does a whole series called Craftily Ever After. She even has an Etsy shop. So Xindi will be talking to you in a minute. Rudy Gutierrez is a master painter who've done everything from album covers, and I imagine you do some fine art too, Rudy. And I don't know if you want to actually speak about that in front of all these illustrators, but that's one way to go. But he has won all kinds of awards. His Double Bass Blues won the Caldecott Honor Award. He's won the Pura Belpre Honor, the America's Book Award, Children's Africana Book Awards, the Africa Access Award, the Silver Birch Express Award nomination. He won the Shining Willow Award. He's been the Society of Illustrators Gold Medal as a distinguished editor in the educator in the arts. He's won the New York Book Award, and he's in an exhibition right this minute at the Norman Rockwell Museum in Stockbridge, Massachusetts. It's called Imprinted, Illustrating Race, and it's a fabulous exhibit if you get a chance to go up there. I just saw it. It's open until October 30th. And then I want to introduce Shadra. Each of these illustrators is going to show you a little bit about their work and talk to you about different income streams in a second, but I want to tell you Shadra does a little bit of everything. She was another coming out of the gate, you know, jumping into children's books and winning all the awards. She got the Ezra Jack Keats Award and the Coretta Scott King John Steptoe Award for New Talent. This was for her first book, Bird, that was written by Zetta Elliott. And she's also co-illustrated Our Children Can Soar, which was a nice collection that won the 2010 NAACP Image Award. She also got the 2011 Ashley Bryan Children's Literature Award. We just recently lost Ashley. And if any of you got to see the tribute to him recently, it was really stunning. But Shadra teaches at the Maryland Institute College of Art. At some point in time, we have to discuss why you can be an institute and a college, but Micah, where she teaches, and she even has an online picture book class at craftsy.com. And she's also in the exhibit, like I mentioned. So we're going to start by each one of them showing you a bit of their work, the kind of things that they've been doing, and then we'll get to talk to them all in a panel and answer some of your questions, because I have a feeling there's going to be a lot of questions about how to make other income. So, Xindi, would you like to take it home?
Sure. And everybody, there we go. Can everyone see?
Yeah.
All right. Hi, my name is Xindi Yan, and I'm an illustrator that mainly focuses on picture books. But since my graduation from Pratt, I have done a couple different full-time jobs and freelance work as well that's outside of the picture book field. So my first job, graduated, like Pat said, I designed these playgrounds. They're called soft play parks. And I essentially just draw them in, have a sense of 3D space, illustrated them, and the company's the factory would produce them like right downstairs. At the same time, well, after that, then I worked full-time as an illustrator in-house for a casino game company. So we made slot machine games for both land-based and mobile apps. And I worked on original illustrations like these two here, as well as editing footages and photoshopping images and editing other like illustrations to design them into games. And then I moved on to a company that I did full-time with them as a designer who they developed children's educational apps. So I was working on character designs, costume designs, and on the right side, you can see prop designs and various kinds. And these were done in Adobe Illustrator. And then after I stepped into picture book as a full-time freelancer, there were downtimes between books, and I would take on these animation projects as well. These are some character developments and expression sheets that I've done for a company called Moonbug Animation. And we also have this series called Craftily Ever After that's early readers, and they are a lot more labor intensive, but a lot easier to draw than picture books. They're just black and white images, but they're on every single page. So that's it. That's all. Everything. Or I mean, I've done some like freelance works on the side as well, but obviously not as experienced as somebody like Rudy would. But yeah, that's essentially a brief introduction of that.
Wow.
That's great. And we're going to be, when we get to the panel, of course, we're going to be asking you how you managed to get into each one of these. You got a few minutes. Do you want to talk at all about what you're doing right this minute? Like, are you doing anything outside of books right now?
Not at this moment, but I have also done live drawings before on Twitch. That is a live drawing platform that people can subscribe to. So that could potentially be a side income as well. And I've done nonprofit work where like that wasn't income stream, but it was for what's it called? Donate for the local dog rescue, and people would donate money, and I would do dog portraits for them. So that was, not for me for my profit, but good line of work. And I did receive a lot of requests of portraits after that, after all that work was out. So that was also something that brought a lot of inquiries from me.
I've heard about Twitch. So how does Twitch work? How does that work?
You live stream. There is no money to be spent to start. You can do whatever it is you want to stream. A lot of people do gaming on there, but I also found a lot of artists as well, and some are really extremely successful at it, and they have a lot of subscribers. That could be if you have the time and you're interested in sharing like your art journey or even teaching on there, you are free to do so.
So when you post your work and then people pay you, or
no, it's completely live. So you just go live and you draw or you talk or whatever you want, and people subscribe to you if they like you, if they come to you a lot so that they don't get ads. That's kind of like the YouTube thing as well. I think YouTube, Instagram, both are they're both taking actions on that as well. Yeah.
But how does the income work? Because if you're doing it and somebody's subscribing, do you get paid by Twitch, or do they pay you directly? How does it work?
You get paid by Twitch, and Twitch is owned by Amazon. So you get 50% of people's monthly subscription. So I think it's $250 because it's like $4.99 per month. So it's like around $250 that a streamer would get. People also throw change, like they call it bits, and like sometimes it is definitely like kind of a long-term plan. Like you don't really get super big and successful or start making worthy amount of money at the beginning, but you will as time goes. I saw in chat Behance also has that. I think every social media has started the subscription program.
Okay, it would be nice, like everybody out there knows about stuff that you guys are going to be talking about, but also stuff that only they know about, or that might be esoteric. If you have something like that, put it in the chat so others can see it, because Twitch is new to me, but hey, if that's $12 you could be making every month.
Yeah.
Or something, maybe a little bit more. Okay, thank you. Thank you. And Rudy, yes. Share with us some of the many, many, many things you've done.
Okay. Oh, sorry about that. Let's go back. Well, first of all, I just have to say that I've always looked at art as an extension of who I am. And with that, I would say no borders, no labels, no categories, no boxes. And with that in mind, I have to say that is what's led me to many so-called income streams. Is he a fine artist? Is he an illustrator? Is he really a children's book illustrator? I've heard all of that. And it's like, yeah, I'm none of them and I'm all of them, and it's really about, I'm me. And I've learned that me has a certain validity, and that's hard won. And once I've learned that, it's easy to jump into a lot of different places. And I look at it as have language, will travel. So I have my visual language, I will travel. I'll travel to a children's book, I'll travel to a mural, I'll travel to a film poster, a van, a stamp, a book cover, editorial work in magazines, album covers. Here's some of the music album covers that I've done, along with editorial work and, Rolling Stone and newspaper things, work like that. And then the whole idea of merchandising as well. So hand in hand with a lot of this work, especially in the music industry, comes merchandising. And I can say that if my work is broken down into so-called areas, it would be music, mysticism, spirit, social justice, and culture. So no matter where you see my work, whether it's in a children's book or on a wall, it's covering all of those different areas. And the idea for me is always about upliftment and inspiring. That's what it's about, so that people see their own validity, walk their path to who they are. And ironically, the more I've done that, the more income streams have opened up for me. It's rather than making money the goal, it's actually other missions tend to be the goal for me. And it leads, ironically, to actually making a living. So on the kind of painting and gallery and museums, I've had work right now, like Pat said, in the Norman Rockwell Museum. It's an honor. You know, I see Norman Rockwell and I see my piece and I'm like, well, that's kind of cool, you know? And then Mesa Contemporary Arts Museum, and then I do lectures as well, teach at different schools, all with the same goal, and that's uplifting and inspiring. Doing backdrops, used to do a lot of backdrops for my wife's show. She's a musician, that's at CBGB's, and then doing live performances as well on stage with a dance company called Deaf Dance Jam Workshop that really was set up for children who were deaf, you know, hearing impaired, and they were supreme artists. And I'd be on stage painting live and doing backdrops and then painting on them. And then I was on stage with people from Broadway, you know, The Lion King, bringing the noise, bringing the funk, and painting live. And it's amazing, you know. And then there's my children's book stuff. It just happens to be another area, another extension of this tree that I call myself. It's just another branch. And honestly, if I could sum it all up real quick, there's a little statement that I've written a while ago, and it's the way I see art. You know, if art is magic, if art is to inspire, if it is a weapon, if it is medicine used to heal soul wounds, or if it makes one not feel alone in his or her or their feelings, or if it serves as transportation to a higher self, then that's where I aspire to live every day. And I find that the more I live up to those qualities, the more the income stream comes. And it comes from a variety of sources, you know, never any one thing. It's surprising, it's exciting at the same time. So I would stress that. I would stress finding out who one is first, and then you'll be surprised how different areas just open up to you. And along with that, of course, in straight up nuts and bolts is meeting people. Of course, you know, here I am years ago doing book covers for HarperCollins, and that leads to me doing picture books because the art director there passed my work along, you know, to an editor there. So there you go. And I don't want to take up too much time, so okay.
No, but that's perfect.
Okay.
That's perfect. And, you know, thank you, because this is what I think draws people to children's books, is that freedom to do exactly what it is you love, love, love doing.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Do what you love, and then people will come to you.
Yeah.
They'll find you. You know, so I think that's something we all aspire. I'm gonna be you when I grow up, Rudy.
Oh man, I always say that about you.
Yeah, okay. Well, you're in trouble. Okay. And Miss Shadra, yes, that's all you got to follow, okay?
You know, you like throw like 4 slides together. So I'm just like, okay, let me get it together. All right. So one of the quotes that I start most of my presentations with is by Federico Fellini, and it says, "You have to live spherically in many directions. Never lose your childish enthusiasm and things will come your way." So all of the big breaks that I've had and the luck that I've had in my career have happened because I've just been open to saying yes. And kind of one thing has led to another. So fun facts about me: I've been illustrating professionally since 2008. I opened an Etsy shop in 2009, which always like trickled in some cash here and there. But last year I was able to make the most money ever with the Etsy shop. And so I'm trying to like push that momentum forward. I've been teaching illustration at MICA since 2011 and launched an online class with Craftsy during that year, which I still make royalties from. And I began working as an agent at large with Painted Words, which is also my agency, in 2019. And I'm publishing my first authored picture book next year, January 2023. So just, I was going to breeze through this so that we have more time for conversation, but this is the Etsy shop, and essentially a lot of work that I was doing experimentally, just kind of in my sketchbook and trying out new styles here and there, all ended up in this Etsy shop, along with some of my illustrations from published books. Someone in the chat earlier said, oh, do people still hire traditional illustrators? And the answer is absolutely. Like it's however you get the work done is how you get the work done. So my shop does pretty well. It keeps me motivated. It keeps me connected to an audience outside of children's books, which is kind of cool. And yeah, it's just fun to have. I also teach. That is the Bruce Wayne to my Batman. And all of these are experiences in my class. I teach book illustration and advanced book illustration at MICA. I also teach professional development from time to time. And those experiences are the things that led me to working as an agent at large. Every year I take my students to New York to meet with publishers and to also read their stories to children and meet with my agent. One thing led to another. She's like, oh, you should rep with us. I'm like, how? With what time? So I took on, I think, 2 people that first year, and things have just developed from there. So I have 7 that I represent now. One is brand new. She's not here yet. But all of these are young artists just starting out. None of these individuals thought that they could, well, maybe one, thought that they could write and illustrate picture books. But I forced them to do it in the class through a lot of exercises and a lot of play. And then all of them, 1, 2, 3 out of the 6 have published books that they've authored and illustrated, and they're fantastic. You're working on the others. It's coming. And then this is my first author illustrated book, Jump In. I wrote it as a fun exercise. Nothing that is successful for me comes from me really trying. Like it never works out. I remember when I was living in New York and Pat was my mentor back at the School of Visual Arts, I tried so hard, like everything, like the portfolio, just hustle, write it over, do it. And nothing worked. And it wasn't until I stopped trying so hard and started playing and enjoying the work itself that things kind of broke. And so I try to keep that in mind with anything that I do. Is like, I don't take anything too seriously. I'm a professional, yes, but there has to be a lot of play in what I do, and hopefully that translates to the page. And I call this the procrastinating section. As an artist, we get bored, we get distracted, and there are ways to channel that kind of nervous energy into good things. And so just kind of piggybacking off of Cindy's comment about doing pro bono work and public service, after I won the Ezra Jack Keats Award for illustrating Bird, I researched them more and was invited to come and speak at the Ezra Jack Keats Foundation bookmaking competition that happens every year for young students in New York City. And I thought, oh man, this would be so cool to be done everywhere, right? And so I live in Baltimore, so let me do it in Baltimore. And I connected with Deb Taylor, the librarian featured on the left, who is now retired, but a Virginia Hamilton award-winning librarian, just amazing person in the industry. And then also the Reginald F. Lewis Museum for African American Culture and History here in Baltimore. And we started the Ezra Jack Keats Foundation bookmaking competition for young people. I was only able to do it, I think, for 2 years because it was, a team of like 3, but it kept us energized. Just awareness about making books, and it fed my soul, my creativity, which then kind of trickles into the work. So that is it.
Okay, well, you guys are all extremely busy. This is good. I love that work will come to you. if you're doing what it is that you love. But I want you guys to think about the different areas that you've worked in. And if there's one that you want to talk about that you can give advice to someone, like how would they get into that particular field? Or if it came to you and you didn't have to do any work to get into it, what you've learned being in it that is particular to that field, as opposed to like just doing children's books, like maybe what's particular to doing an album cover, or what's particular to being an age, as you know, that's not illustrating children's books per se. Do any of you have any advice about a pathway in or the parameters of a particular area? Who wants to go?
Okay.
Okay, Rudy?
Yeah, I can tell you years ago, I was, just to give you some context, I had worked in a studio for like 5 years, got out of that studio, went totally freelance, but it was like starting over. And so with that in mind, I approached this publisher. It was called Quarterly Black Review, and they were looking for illustrators. And I knew they weren't going to pay much, but I made a deal with the publisher that he would pay me $500 per issue. I would pick a piece to do for a cover or an interior. And right around that time, I had started teaching, and I was hiring students to do the other articles. So what ended up happening is I ended up redoing my whole portfolio into who I was at that time. Because before that, I was walking around with a portfolio that reflected the studio that I had worked in, which was like walking around with advertising stuff, Kentucky Fried, Citibank, stuff like that, which had nothing to do with me. And so I looked at that as an opportunity to redo who I am and step out as me. And that led to editorial work and advertising work, but in the light of who I was, not in terms of, can you do this, can you do that? They wanted me to be me within that certain realm. And that makes a big difference in terms of having work come in. Absolutely.
And other people see it and call you for editorial work. I mean, it grows.
Right. And then editorial world tends to lead to other areas like album covers, you know, things like that, because editorial, even though it's not top dollar like advertising is, it kind of feeds those other markets. So it gives you exposure. And that's the way it worked for me.
Okay. All right. Xindi?
I would say, particularly for animation work that I've been doing, I've always been interested in the animation art, like pre-production work. And it's while there's a lot of similarities with illustration, if you do want jobs in that type of industry or any type of industry, like, you know, if that you want to break into, you do want to focus your portfolio specifically on what that industry is looking for. So for picture books, you might have a lot of finished paintings, a lot of really nice warm stories, but for animation, they might see it and they might be like, well, that's a good artist, but this is not what we're looking for. So they're generally looking for faster pace. They're not looking for finished work. They're looking for your understanding of anatomy of characters and your variety in your design. So you might want to have one character and you would have 5 designs for this character and 10 designs of different costumes and turnarounds and things like that. Basically just look at the industry artists' work, portfolio work, and see what they have, and use that, and use like either a potential project or like an imaginary one, or you can redo a project that has already existed on the market to like package yourself basically as an employee or an artist for that specific industry. That's for me, you know, that's like kind of opposite of what Rudy was talking about, but it's more like, you know, if you want to do that, of course, right. If that's what you like, yeah, that's what I think the most efficient thing to do.
Yeah, if you're targeting something, would you explain to everybody what, because some people, I've had a lot of students who want to go into animation, and I see there's a couple of animators watching, but will you explain what a turnaround is? Because I see that they fill their portfolio with this.
Yes. Well, a turnaround is basically one character from front view, side view, back, and another side. Usually it's it depends on what the production needs, but yeah, usually it's like 360-degree turnaround. So you have to have a good spatial understanding of a character. And you know, most of these days animations are in 3D, so that's a good skill to have at least. Yeah.
Okay, when you were going out after that type of work,
Yeah.
how did you identify companies that you would approach?
I was just looking at mainly Disney, Pixar, DreamWorks, like the biggest companies in the industry. I have a lot of their art off books. So if you can buy them on Amazon. Almost every single animated movie that came out has an art off book. That's all the production work that has been done for this. So you can find like either like, you know, character expressions or turnarounds, technical stuff, or like the inspirations they have done pre-production to inspire the story. There's so much to do in that industry, and you almost have to focus on specifically what you want to get in there, like what role you want in there to perfect it. But in general, you want a portfolio that covers a lot of that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. And Shadra, other than folks coming to your door looking for you to do, you know, work, have you gone after a particular type of work?
Not after I became established. You know, in the beginning, I went after everything, right? Knocking on all the doors, visiting all of the editors that would see me. But not now. As an agent, I have done that for some of my clients. If I have a client that's like, you know, I really do children's books, but I really want to do this like United States Postal Service stamp. So I've gone to the art directors and, you know, rallied for that artist, but not for myself. You know, that's all I'm going to say.
But can you tell us about how you set up that Etsy store? You said it would, and I know it was like really, really amazingly successful, right? Right? Was it right out of the gate? You were really set up for it though. Can you tell us all the parameters?
It's grown so slowly. You know, Etsy was new on the scene. I'm not sure when they started, but this was back in like 2008. And so I believe in all the ways to make money. And I was like, oh, an online store? Sure. I'll buy a printer, you know, get some envelopes, let's work it out. And I only had maybe like 4 or 5 images in the shop when I first started out. And for every book that I released, I would release at least 1 to 2 prints from that book, and you know, advertise to librarians and teachers, that sort of thing. And over time, it's just grown. It's just grown and grown and grown and grown. And so, you know, at this point with the Etsy shop and my work, I can make enough monthly to kind of cover, you know, rent with Etsy, which is great. The other side of that is it's work, right? And so I do everything here. You see that giant printer behind me. I'm in my Etsy shop. I do everything here at home. You know, I'm the designer, I'm the marketer, I package everything. During the pandemic, when people were really rallying around Black artists, everything blew up. And I had to bring in my quarantine bubble of just 2 friends. And every Saturday they came and helped me pack prints. And you know, we were dropping off like 70 to 100 prints a week at the post office. So I hired someone after that. And, you know, it's that weird space too of trying to figure out like how to hire help. If you actually need help, do you get an intern? I have not mastered that. So I still do most things by myself or with, you know, the agency when I'm working, you know, wearing that hat. But everything here at home and at the studio is a one person show. Because trying to hire people and work with help is another skill that I'm an only child, I'm a Virgo. Now it doesn't work out for me.
You don't play well with others?
So I need that shirt. Does not play well with others.
Okay, when you're doing that though, when you're sending these pieces out, are you doing them as limited editions like a fine artist where you would not print more than say 100 of one piece, or do you just tell people?
So I have like some linoleum cuts. I did a book in like, someone asked about medium earlier and what medium do I work? I work in all the media. And so I did a book in lino cut And for those, I would have a limited edition, like, 10 vinyl cuts, depending on how many were successful, because I did all that at home. And I've released some limited editions, but it's annoying. I just, at this point, everything's an open edition. I really believe that illustration is art for the people. And so I try not to get too zhizhy about, I'm a fine artist, I'm an illustrator. It's like, I made this thing, you want it, give me $30, I'll send it to you. And that's that. But some of the more like fine art leaning pieces, like lino cut, things that are really like specialized, I will, decrease the number of prints that I release.
So people have something special.
Sure. Yeah. And in one print, there was a book, and from Our Children Can Soar, the Ruby Bridges piece, I sold the original for that pretty early on and promised that collector that I would sell a limited run of prints because I want the original to hold value. So, I do consider certain things when I'm thinking about prints and numbering.
Okay, good. Well, thinking about the future. Rudy, I wanted to ask you, with doing covers for, well, I guess it would be CD covers now, it wouldn't be albums. Albums have gone the way.
Actually, they've made a bit of a comeback because the last few that I've done are 12-inch vinyl plus CDs. Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Isn't that something? What with doing that as a business, aside from, getting to know musicians, because I know that you've gotten to know musicians and your wife is one. What kind of guidelines would you give somebody if they wanted to get into doing that? I mean, your style is extremely unique. If there's such a, can you say extremely unique? So I can see why people would come to you because it has music in it.
Yeah.
You can feel the music in it. But when you're actually working in that business, how does it work? Do you get royalties? Do you get residuals or anything on the work that you've done? Or is it a one-time thing?
Well, okay, it's let's take an album cover, for example. I won't say any name. We do an album cover. I'm getting paid for the cover, the use, sometimes the original art, the actual usage on the cover. I may do a logo for it so this is all getting itemized.
Okay.
So doing the name of the album. I'm doing interior art for it. I'm doing, also I may do some drawings that can be used for other parts of the album, like singles, things like that. So I'm itemizing every single thing. And then the overall wild card is merchandise. Okay, so do I get royalties for it? No, I probably could negotiate that, but I think it would be more hassle than it's worth. So what I do is I just try to get as much as I can for the merchandising, and I try to make deals with them because most artists are going to want to own the work.
Yeah.
I try to make deals so that it's joint ownership, so I can do what I want with it as well, as long as it doesn't interfere with what they're doing. So yeah, so it's a whole list of itemized things, and like I said, the wild card is the merchandising that you have to come up with numbers for. So you do the research and you find out, okay, this particular group, how well do they sell? And that has to do with the pricing also. Are they on an independent label? Are they putting it out themselves? Is it a major label? All of that comes into play and drastically changes the price. If you're talking jazz as opposed to popular stuff like rock or R&B or hip hop, totally different prices. So you have to start to be aware of that. Jazz is not going to sell as much, so the budget's going to be substantially less. Even though you may love doing it, it's going to be a lot less than a popular album. So all of this comes into play, without a doubt.
Good Lord, good Lord. Okay. And Cindy, I wanted to ask you, because when you were doing those chapter books, The Craftily Ever After, how did that work? When you signed up for one, did you sign up for like 20, or did you know that you were going to be attached to this project forever? How does that work?
We definitely kept that in mind. I think we signed up for 2 books. And then before I finished the first 2, we signed up for another, and then we just kept on signing 2 at a time for the most part. But it is something that, like, similar series from Little Simon had, some of them had run for 20, 30 books. So it is a possibility that you would end up having this just in the background the whole time. Yeah.
Okay.
Hey,
This was, yeah.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, was that through an agent that you got this?
Yes, it's through I'm represented by an artist agent, so she's the one that handled things. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Just getting back, I realized I didn't finish answering the question in that you were asking me, okay, how do you get this album
How
cover
you
art?
doing?
Well, a lot of it is word of mouth, but a lot of it is social media, believe it or not. It's
Wow.
like unbelievable how that works.
Okay.
I'm constantly getting inboxes from musicians. And then you got to check out, okay, where are they coming from?
Okay.
You know, how real is this? You know, do they understand how much it costs to
Yeah.
do an album cover? Most of the time they don't. So you have to kind of screen certain stuff, you know, but
they've
yeah.
they've seen your work and they get in touch with you directly.
Absolutely. Yep. And that's incredibly, social media does work. I mean, I've gotten shows from social media, and Mesa Contemporary Arts Museum in Arizona, from them seeing my work online. So crazy, but
Never knock it. Never knock it.
substantial, yeah.
We're going to open this to audience questions, but before we do, I want to ask you one last question. Tell me about some dire warnings. Do you have any warnings about certain areas of different types of businesses or anything? Things to watch out for, things to protect yourself against if you go in a certain direction.
I would say when you're negotiating and you're thinking about organizations that want to hire you, if someone asks about work for hire, always know that you can ask to retain the rights to your artwork. And you should try to do that. You know, a lot of nonprofits will say, oh, we want to retain the rights and we want to own the original. Well, unless you're going to pay for all of that and do a buyout, which is a lot of money, I'm sorry, that's not on the table. And the reason that I say that, someone else asked about licensing. When you own your work, you own your work. And so a lot of the work that I've done for other organizations, I've been able to license to children's hospitals and, you know, just kind of all over the place. I am the illustrator. So, okay, here's a fun thing I didn't talk about, but it's fun. I'm going to talk about it. So the Netflix show You, last season, one of the main characters was a children's book, like she's a children's librarian and an illustrator, a moonlighting illustrator. And so I was the illustrator that did the artwork for the show. And so I retained most of the rights. So, you know, we have to negotiate a little bit, but first of all, it's just cool to say. And secondly, yeah, I want to retain the rights because, you know, maybe not tomorrow or next year even, but a few years down the line, like I have work in my Etsy shop that I did in graduate school in like 2008 that are my highest selling pieces of artwork. So I would say the biggest thing that you need to make sure you do is keep the rights to your work.
Yeah, absolutely. It's I had a situation once where I'm sitting in an art director's office and we've agreed on an amount for a cover for a magazine. And he says, okay, let me go get the paperwork. So he goes to his office and he comes back and he slides over this little contract to me. And everything is pretty simple. And then in very small type at the bottom says that this magazine owns all rights to the artwork. So I look at it and I go, oh, I'm really sorry. I don't do that. And I slid it back to him the way he slid it to me. And he says, 1 second. And he goes to his office and he comes back and he slides it over to me again and I pick it up and now it says, Illustrator owns all rights to the artwork. So it's not written in stone.
Yeah. Even if you sign it.
That's right. That's right. So, I mean, you have to be really aware of that. And you also have to have some imagination and some dreaming involved too. For example, my work was used for John Coltrane film and they used it for the cover, the DVD, everything. They also shot material of me for the inside of the film. And so at some point, they wanted to, in terms of negotiating the price, we came up with an amount. And then my wife tells me, Rudy, you should ask for bonus payment if this film gets an award or is nominated for an Academy Award. And I'm like, okay, yeah, let's do that, right? Next thing you know, they get back to me and they say, okay, by the way, the only other person asking for this is Denzel Washington, who's the narrator. And I'm like, okay, that's cool.
Nice.
So, I mean, don't be afraid to reach, you know, why not?
I'm adding this, Rudy, okay, the Denzel clause. I want that.
Wow, right? But it didn't get an Academy Award.
Yeah. But and to Rudy's point, I mean, that's what negotiation is, right?
Yes.
It is, you want things, they need things, and you have to meet in the middle, and they can only say no, right?
You know what? I would add one more thing to that. If you're working with an agent, your agent should have that imagination as well, because that idea did not come from my agent. Okay, it came
Listen,
from
wherever it comes from, it was good advice. That was
right.
good advice. Cindy, before we open it up
Yes.
to audience questions, you have a dire warning for us. We're not dire.
I feel like I've been pretty lucky that like nothing has been crazy, but I do think from my point of view, working full time as well as freelance a couple times, having to deal with clients that don't really, or they're not really in the artistic field. A lot of times it's quite difficult to communicate.
Yes.
And it takes a lot of just back and forth and maneuvering. But I would say as an artist, you should always stand your ground if it's something that you believe in. If they're like, oh, can we have this bigger, have the eyes being bluer? If you don't think so, then tell them, and you're the artist and you're in control of that. And I think that would ensure that you are having a good time when you're working on these things. Just, it gets miserable sometimes if you've been pushed into a position that you don't know what's happening. Then it's not a sustainable way to work.
I agree with you
Also,
100%.
yeah, Pat, also, as you know, be wise about doing the research and knowing. For instance, the other side of social media is all these people who will contact you. I'm a writer and I want you to do this book for me. I don't have a publisher, but I'm thinking if you can do the whole book for me, we can sell it together.
Right.
And you wanna run from that.
Right. You got to be cautious, particularly on social media.
Absolutely. And surround yourself with people who can advise you on that.
Yeah. You do need good
advice.
I
feel like a lot of times, like you have these projects and you're like, oh, I can do this and, have a little bit of income from this. But at the same time, you got to think how much time it's going to take you. And if it's worth your time, can you do something better for yourself with this time that's spent on this meaningless thing?
Right. So, you have to value your own time because nobody else is going to. And I find that with a lot of artists, you don't necessarily put the value on your time and work and talent that you should. We're going to turn this over to the audience questions, but I do have one thing to add, because based on what all of you guys are saying, I think it's also important, no matter how many opportunities come your way or you think you want to go after, make sure you're taking on stuff that you really want to do. Like what Cindy's saying, I took on a job once doing sets and costumes, and I was at the Apollo Theater painting in the basement at midnight trying to finish these sets. And when I saw the dancers on stage the next day sticking to the sets because the paint was still wet, I realized I'm not a set designer. I don't know why. Okay, so you have to know your own limitations. And with that, Allison, with that little horror tale, audience questions, what do you got?
There are quite a number of audience questions. First, thank you so much. This is amazing. A number of people have asked about agents and art reps, really talking about it more so for your different income streams. Are you working with one agent or rep? What does your team look like if you're working outside of working with a publisher? So accountants, lawyers, different reps.
Good question. So to get as many answers as we possibly can in, why don't everybody just take a minute and we'll just go Cindy, Rudy, Shadra on each answer. Okay, what do you got?
I work only with my agent on picture book projects. I can take any projects that I want to her that is in our contract, but I'm not obligated to. So most of the time, I'm handling these freelance just projects by myself. It's not a lot, and I don't work with any other agents. Yeah.
Okay. I have a book agent right now because my wife is writing children's books and we want to do our projects together, which was a dream of ours, and that's happening now. I'm working on a book right now that she wrote. Yeah, it's great. And I used to have a general agent for all markets, and people should know that most agents outside of the children's book world get like 25 to 30%, okay, which is substantial. Whereas most book agents, it's more around 15%. So there's a substantial difference. So right now I just have a book agent, and the rest of the work that I get is just coming from, people seeing my work.
So I have an agent, even though I work as an agent, who handles picture book contracts, and some of my editorial work, and then other things. I mean, we're really flexible about who's going to take what based on my other role within the agency. I have an accountant that I've worked with forever. I do my own bookkeeping, which is going through my receipts, but then I send everything and let her file the taxes for me so I don't go to jail. And I don't have a lawyer, but we have a lawyer at the agency that reviews things for us.
Okay. Cool.
Thank you. Another big theme, I think, in all the questions has to do with publicizing your work. I think a lot of people who have joined the call tonight are familiar with maybe publicizing their book project and avenues that they use for that. Is it the same? Are you using the same, marketing techniques for, your other work? And then to add on to that, someone asked, just in general, do you find some social media platforms better than others for getting your work out and for publicizing your work?
You want to go
Okay.
first?
Sure. Wait, what was the first question? Wait, okay, let's go with the second question. Publicizing your work. I still use Instagram. I hate Twitter. I use for my Etsy shop, I use an app called Flowdesk, which is direct mail marketing. So I have a mailing list and then things go out to people to their inboxes. What was the first question, Allison?
Do you use the same approach to
The same
marketing?
approach.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a mashup just because it takes too much time to separate all the boxes, but it's a little, I still do postcards for picture books. So I'll send postcards to libraries and booksellers and editors, things like that. But for my for my Etsy stuff, it's all like direct email.
I find Behance a very, very good platform to get work. And I've gotten numerous requests for both animation and picture books. Not all of them resulted to anything, but it's all up to whether your personal schedule allows and such. But yeah, I use Instagram mostly. That's about it, because there's so much time you can spend on social media these days, and with the video content and TikTok and all that, it takes way too much time. So I would rather focus the time on just trying to be a better artist. That's just my, not get distracted by all that.
Allison, can I just say something in defense of poor old Twitter? Okay, the Shadra is just trashed, because I find, and I use Twitter a lot because my students in particular, I see all kinds of pitch sessions advertised and job opportunities advertised, particularly at publishers when they're looking for like assistant designers or starting positions, things like that. I see those kind of ads. I see all kinds of opportunities on Twitter, and I retweet them because at least I tell my students to go look there. So there are things there. I even put things on Facebook.
You are the queen. You're the queen.
I'm the only one on Facebook, I know, but I will post those things because you do see opportunities and contests and things that, like pitch sessions that are really worth checking out. So that's my only defense.
Yeah, I just got on TikTok and we'll see how that goes. It's ridiculous so far. Rudy?
Yeah, it's been mostly Instagram. I still do Facebook also. But it's mostly Instagram, and times have changed. There's so many art directors who are just scanning Instagram nonstop. And I've also heard Twitter as well. So, but I'm not on Twitter. Maybe I should be, but I'll tell you this, the best way to promote oneself is to do high profile jobs, which I've had the opportunity to do. That leads to work big time, so.
Okay. Well, that's really great. I know we are coming close here, so I'm trying to prioritize a lot of the questions that we have. I think one big piece people were asking about was actually coming up with pricing or actually coming up with a starting point for negotiations? Is there a site that you use? Do you talk to other friends who have had similar opportunities? How do you come up with pricing, whether it's for in your Etsy shop for prints versus negotiating maybe an editorial spot?
Yeah, first I would say, get a copy of the Graphic Artist Guild Handbook, Pricing and Ethical Guidelines, and the range for an editorial job. It'll be like, it'll be from like $150 to $4,000. So it can be helpful and also very much not helpful, but you find yourself kind of within that. But it does talk about how to really interrogate your client. As Rudy was saying earlier, with some companies, they're going to have a larger budget than smaller companies. The question that I always start with is, what is your budget for this project? And that then lets me know that they have a budget. And when I do that, I usually am surprised because they give me a quote for much more than I was going to ask for. And I can just say, yes, that works for me. So that makes it easy. Jessica Hish also did a really fantastic article years ago called The Dark Art of Pricing. If you Google it, you can find it online. And she talks about all the steps that she goes through when talking to her client in order to settle on a price. And for Etsy, I just, I copied from everybody else. I just look at other people's prints and what they're selling for, and then figure out how much money I want to make, and then we go from there because I'm lazy.
Right. In my experience, it's actually been beneficial for years to have had agents and see how they do their pricing. So that's really benefited me as well, even though I'm freelancing on my own right now. That has helped a lot. After a while, you start to get an idea of what's what in terms of, can I negotiate this? Should I negotiate this? You start to get a feel for that. And I would just say this, you should have your bottom line that they don't know. What's your low end? What are you willing to do or not do? And you have to be educated in terms of like, what are you selling? I'm selling usage. That's what a lot of people don't understand. Yes, I can do this real quick. So what? You're selling usage, very important.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really have much to add to that. Both have basically has been my experience as well. Sometimes I calculate based on the hourly rate that I would charge, and that's just kind of as a reference of how long this project is going to take me and what's the baseline of amount of money that I should be getting just for the labor of the project.
Yeah, another thing, talk to other creatives, like it's a really friendly world, and we typically try to look out for one another. No one wants to see another professional get lowballed on a job. And I know for students and those that are starting out, you're so excited that someone wants to hire you, but please always keep in mind that you are a professional. And if you lowball, it hurts the rest of the industry, because then people think that they can go out and hire anybody for that really low price. So hashtag in dating and illustration, know your worth.
Okay.
And also understand that there are different budgets for different projects, even within the same publisher, let's say. There are different hopes and dreams for a certain book, and there are lower hopes and dreams for other books, and those budgets tend to be a little less. So, I mean, be aware of that and know that there are other reasons for doing this project, but always have your bottom line.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, Rudy, because when you were talking about the guy bringing in another contract, I saw that so often when I was freelancing, that if you stood your ground, they would pull out a different form, a different paper. You know what I mean? And so the thing is, that value, when I worked on the Graphic Artist Guild hotline, the number one problem was artists undervaluing themselves.
Absolutely.
They didn't want to talk about money. And basically, if you're doing what you love and you love what you're doing and people come to you, it's still, you get paid for it. People who make couches may love making couches, but you can't go in and just get one for nothing or just ask them to give it to you for $10 because that's their price, So you have to, if you don't value it, who's going to?
Yeah.
And be real about how much it costs for you to live, like
Yeah.
really, like
Yeah.
do the numbers. What is your budget? How much
Yeah.
money do you need to make a month? Like that makes it real fast.
Yeah. So I know we're coming up to no time, but I'd love everybody to give like a good piece of advice like that, but something different that you have learned, a takeaway in your career that will just suddenly make everything better for everybody to apply tomorrow to their career. What you got? That was so unfair. It wasn't quantum physics, right? It could have.
Well, for
It's
me,
all a game. I'm sorry, Rudy.
no, go ahead. You're right. You're right.
It's all a game. It is all a game. If you can look at life and know that it is all a game, you can set your own stakes and set them high and go play the game and win. Hashtag win. Hashtag all I do
Hashtag
is
win. Okay. I like that. What you got, Rudy?
I would just say, understand your validity out here, bottom line. And that's hard earned for me. It took a while, so, but I understand it now. So there you go.
Words of wisdom.
Yeah.
You got Xindi?
How do I follow such wisdoms? I would say, like, just focus on what you love, and like what Rudy said in the beginning, and you find the things that would expand from what you love too. Don't try to fit into something that you're obviously not comfortable with, and you just focus on being a better artist. That's all you can do as a like that's for me. I feel like it's easy to get distracted by achievements, awards, or anything like sales or anything like that, but those things are all out of your control, and your only job is to enjoy what you're doing and just become better at what you're doing. And if you have no regrets after if you've done that.
Yes, Cindy.
Yeah.
You're right, though. What Cindy said is real important, and that is, don't try to fit in. You do not have to try to fit in. Make it
What you do.
Yeah.
Do what you do. I agree. I have all these sayings for my class, and one of them is, if you're not having fun, you're not doing it right.
Yep.
Which is absolutely true. But the one that really stuck with me was, it's not a question of who's going to let you do it, it's who's going to stop you.
Right.
And the only person who can really stop you from doing all these pursuits is you. It's only you. Do you know what I mean? And I really appreciate all the comments that you guys have offered and the experiences that you have shared. I think the default thing is this, like what Rudy says, you do what you do, right? You do it, and hopefully they will come to you, but at least you'll love what you're doing while you're doing it, because one last quote I heard, which I really believe, is the way you spend your day is the way you spend your life. Because you look up and it will really go very quickly. You should be having the experience you want to have every single day, trying to do what it is you love doing, even when you're not getting paid for it. Because, like you said, Rudy said, people will see what you're doing and they may come and find you, for good reasons. For good reasons.
That doesn't mean that it's always easy either.
No,
it's
right.
okay to strain. That's the other part. It's okay.
It is
within that fun, there's pain. Okay.
Well, I was going to say, Pat's like, if it's not fun, you're not doing it right. If it doesn't hurt a little, you're not doing it right. Also,
I agree.
Don't be afraid. Don't be ashamed of a day job. Like, I feel like the dream is always, I want to be a freelance. Of my entire career, I have been a freelancer for 1 year. I have always had multiple streams of income, multiple hustles. And I'm not ashamed of that. Bruce Wayne lives a certain way, and I need to make sure that I got the money to come in.
Bruce Wayne did not see that coming, because we didn't even talk about teaching. And I know we have to cut this off, but I think that's a wonderful stream. Even if you're not teaching at a university, like Rudy and I and Shadra do, even if you're not teaching that, teaching someone, like the way that Shadra got that program started, the bookmaking program started, brought it to Maryland. Teaching someone, you can always take what you know and share it with somebody, and you're all right. This business is very open-handed. People help each other. They will inform each other. I know we all had help getting started in our careers, and that's what it's about. So teach somebody else. But it's been a lovely, lovely evening chatting with you guys. And Allison, thank you so much
Oh
for
my
bringing this
goodness,
together.
this is just wonderful. Somebody said know your value, and that seems like a pretty good quote for this panel. We really do value what you brought to us. I'll end with lots of gratitude. It'll be a quick gratitude stream here. Thanks so much to Pat and Cindy and Shadra and Rudy. Thanks to our Highlights Foundation team who help us do free events like this for our community. We love your support and we love all of you. Gratitude to all of those who were able to gather tonight. We hope that you'll continue sharing stories with us and reaching out to us. As I mentioned, you'll see the recording of this along with a post with some of the links that we shared. Be safe, stay in touch, and thanks to all of you. Thanks so much. Good night.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Bye.